The U.S. Special Envoy cancels press conference with President Zelensky.
A scheduled press conference between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Donald Trump's special envoy was cancelled at the last minute amid escalating political tensions between the two countries. The event was originally planned to include a media address by President Zelensky and U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg, but the U.S. requested a last-minute change, opting for a brief photo session without any speeches or press questions. On February 20th, Ukrainian President Zelensky's spokesperson, Serhiy Nikiforov, confirmed that the cancellation of the press conference was requested by the U.S. On social media platform X, President Zelensky mentioned that he had a detailed and productive conversation with Kellogg about the situation of war prisoners, ensuring security in a potential peace agreement, and battlefield developments. However, the US did not disclose many details about the meeting. Mr. Kellogg's visit to Kyiv comes amid rising tensions between President Trump and President Zelensky, raising doubts about the future of US support for Ukraine. At a White House press briefing on February 20th, US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz stated that some remarks from Kyiv, along with offensive comments about President Donald Trump, were unacceptable. These statements followed President Zelensky's comments that Mr. Trump lived in a bubble of misinformation after Trump had previously blamed Ukraine for the war. In response, Trump expressed his anger towards Ukraine. When asked whether President Trump blamed Russia or Ukraine for the conflict that Moscow began in February 2022, Waltz avoided giving a direct answer. Instead, he emphasized that Trump was very frustrated with Ukraine's leadership. President Trump's goal is to end this war as quickly as possible. Both sides are still fighting, much like World War I, Waltz added. Waltz also stated that Trump was the best person to negotiate with Russian President Vladimir Putin, despite concerns that Washington might pressure Ukraine into making concessions after initiating talks with Russia without the involvement of Europe or Kyiv. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance declared that the war was nearing its end and could not stop without dialogue with Russia. Earlier, the US government had proposed an agreement between Ukraine and Russia, which would grant Washington access to Ukraine's mineral resources. However, Kyiv rejected the proposal, as it did not include security guarantees. President Trump's new stance on the conflict has caused concern among European leaders, including in the UK. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy stated that London would play a bridging role between the US and Europe in peace talks for Ukraine. However, he expressed doubts about whether Russia genuinely wanted peace. Peace could be achieved immediately if Russia withdrew from Ukraine tomorrow, he said. French President Emmanuel Macron, who is scheduled to meet Trump in Washington on February 24th, affirmed that he would warn Trump not to appear weak in front of Putin. Earlier, Macron had also discussed European diplomatic efforts with President Zelensky in light of the US shift in position. Meanwhile, Russian officials are closely monitoring developments from Washington and have voiced support for President Trump's stance, suggesting that his approach could benefit Moscow. The cancelled press conference, harsh rhetoric from both sides, and the ongoing US-Russia bilateral negotiations are placing Ukraine in a difficult position as the war enters its third year and Western support becomes less certain.